Okay, so it's going to take a couple of moments for people to get the notification for Kevin to join. So if you're watching this in the future, you can just fast forward this part. Hey everyone! Wow, so many people are like punctual. I love it. I don't think Kevin is in the room yet. Oh, hi Erika, Osman, Taylor, Carlinga. Let me see, is Kevin here? Oh, Dina's here. Dina's one of our awesome QPR instructors who teaches suicide prevention for NAMI. Kevin is still not in the room yet. Okay. But while oh, Kevin's here! Woohoo! Let me get him in here. Okay, here we go.
Hi.
Hi, Kevin! Can you hear me okay? Oh, it's loading. Can you hear? Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, amazing. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you for asking.
Yeah, I've been so excited. Like, since you emailed on Tuesday, I've been like annoying everyone I know, like with the flyer and
Oh, good. Well, that's great. We're going to get a lot of people to watch and to listen. That's fantastic.
yeah, so it's just really cool that we're here. So, um, thank you so much for taking time out of your life.
You
So yeah,
bet. I'm very glad to.
awesome. So I was hoping that we could just start off with the moment of silence for everyone who we have lost to suicide before just introducing ourselves and going in. Okay,
Absolutely.
cool. Thank you. Okay. So, um, okay, so welcome everyone. It's so great to be together during this pandemic virtually with Kevin Hines. Just a little bit of the outline. So for the first 40 to 45 minutes, I have a series of questions that my youth programs department thought would be really beneficial to discuss with Kevin. And then for the last 15 minutes, he will answer as many of your questions as possible. So you can send them in the question mark section at the bottom, or we have our volunteer, Ali, who will keep track on the chat, and we'll get to that in the end. So really quickly introducing myself, my name is Yasmin Irfani, and I'm the Youth Programs Director at the National Alliance on Mental Illness in the San Fernando Valley chapter. So I basically coordinate and teach QPR suicide prevention trainings and mental health first aid for adults and those adults who work with youth. And in our courses, we actually highlight Kevin's story. So I feel like I've known you, even though we met. And our whole team is just so excited for this opportunity. And so our goal for this year is to train 600 people, 300 in QPR and 300 in mental health first aid by November. So if for anyone who lives in the San Fernando Valley, you can do it for like at no cost at all. So we could talk about that more, but I'd like to introduce our special guest, Kevin Hines, who we have the privilege of speaking with. He is a suicide survivor and a dedicated prevention advocate. And following his attempt to take his own life in 2000 off the Golden Gate Bridge, he's become a best-selling author, global public speaker, and an award-winning documentary filmmaker. among many of the other amazing projects. I'm not even exaggerating. So, and one thing that I really think stands out about you, Kevin, is your emphasis on hope and healing and recovery, because this topic can feel really heavy and dark for a lot of people. So, yeah, without further ado, should we just jump in the questions?
Let's go for it. Let's do it.
Okay, cool. So your story is powerful to say the least, and it's incredible how you've shared it so often to help other people feel less alone. So can you just briefly share with anyone who might be here who hasn't heard it before?
Absolutely. So if you haven't heard my story, if you heard it before, I'll share with you my life's journey, if you will. I was born in poverty. I was born in severe poverty to biological parents who, after they had me, were on drugs and alcohol, who had substance use disorder. But they had also been diagnosed separately with manic depression, what we today call bipolar disorder. And I would be triply diagnosed with that in my lifetime, the same disease. But before that, living in kind of squalor in my infancy, being fed what mom and dad could steal, Kool-Aid, Coca-Cola, and sour milk was my diet. I was taken away from my birth parents, removed from custody from them, and placed in a foster care. I bounced around in foster care with my brother. My brother and I both got the same vicious strain of bronchitis, and he passed away. My only full-blooded brother. I immediately developed a severe detachment disorder from reality and abandonment issues from a very, very infant age, which is very dangerous to my mental health. I had already been dealing with being malnutritioned, and that would cause a great deal of brain health problems at a very young age. I bounced around from home to home. I was in 4 foster homes before I ended up with Patrick and Deborah Hines. And as you know my last name, you know this one works out, so spoiler alert. Pat and Debbie Hines made me their son. They are my mom and dad, and they gave me opportunity, a future, and a beautiful existence. And when they took me in, I was violently ill for the first 30 days. So all day, every day, I was so sick because of what my birth parents were feeding me, that my mom, Debbie, and Patrick and Dad, they had to take me to the doctors back and forth, up and down. And every doctor would say the same thing. There's nothing physically wrong with this child. It's all emotional. Mm. What we know today, if you look at gut to brain health, is that my gut health was so poor that it was affecting my brain in such a way that it was showing itself in physical symptoms. So we know today that it was much more than meets the eye than just emotional well-being. So in the Hines home, after my first 30 days there, Debbie came to my crib. She leaned over and she said, and my birth name was Giovanni. So she said, "Gio, you're safe. We're not going anywhere. But if you don't knock this off, we're going to have to give you back," which is a complete contradiction. But she said that to me. And on that night, it was as if my infant mind had heard her words and understood them, because it was the first night we both slept soundly in 30 days. She wrote this in her journal of those days. Well, I knew the next day, in some way, shape, or form, that I was finally home. And I would grow up in the Hines home, be given a beautiful life with, frankly, I'll be honest with you, a privileged life. A gifted life, 2 parents who worked extremely hard for what they had. And my mom and dad adopted 3 kids from 3 separate families into one, making a melting pot of a family. I'm mixed, black and other things. My brother's black, my sister's white. And I always say when people saw us walking down the street, they were confused. But nonetheless, growing up in that Hines household was beautiful. And I thought to myself as I got older, how could anything go sideways from here? You know, I'm going to grow up. I'm going to go to that good school. I'm going to get that good job my dad's always talking about. And everything's going to be fine. And it turned out that wasn't the case. at 17 and a half, much like my biological parents before me, I had a complete mental breakdown. Mm. And that mental breakdown led to a 2-year haphazard battle with bipolar depression that I wasn't prepared for, that I wasn't willing to not be in denial for or of. And I got to a point where I believed I was useless and had no value. And that's when it hit me. 19 years of age, I began to believe that my only option was to die by my hands, to take my life from lethal emotional pain, which is a term coined by Dr. John Draper of the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. I don't want to steal his words, but I'll tell you, it was a devastating time for me, and my family would experience a devastating time in the very near future in the wake of my attempt. On September 25th, the year 2000, I packed a notebook into my backpack, my shoulder bag, and I said goodbye to my father. Mm. And he said, well, Kev, why don't I take you to City College and you can come home on the bus after at 6 tonight? I said, sure, Dad. He said, so I get in the car with my dad. I'm gripping my shoulder bag to my chest because I don't want him to find the note. And he's talking the whole ride because he's nervous. He knew something was wrong. He didn't know what. To be fair, my dad really tried to reach me that day. But no one taught Pat Hines suicide prevention. No one taught my dad to ask the direct question to someone in that much pain, are you thinking of taking your life? Are you planning to die by your hands? And have you made a plan, and what is that plan? No one thought to ask that question. And I ended up getting to City College, dropping all of my courses except one, and going onto a Muni train and then to a bus. And I sat in the very back row in the middle seat looking out upon everybody, and I began to cry softly and then moderately, and then just these waterfalls flowing from my eyes and mucus dripping from my nose. And then I began to yell aloud at the voices in my head on a crowded bus filled with people. Leave me alone. I don't want to die. Why do you hate me so much? What did I ever do to you? And now 100 people are looking right at me but saying nothing, except for one man. The guy to my left points at me with his thumb and says, what the hell's wrong with that kid, with a smile on his face? And that is the nature of some human beings, to be apathetic in the face of another person's pain. And that's something we can't afford anymore in this country or around the world. If we see somebody in pain, we've got to reach out. Mm-hmm. We can't wait for them to reach out. Actually, we've got to reach in. We've got to say, hey, I'm here for you. I've got your back. I'm not going anywhere until I know you're safe, whether you know that person from Adam or not. But nobody was there in my situation like this. The bus got to the Golden Gate Bridge and everybody deboarded. I was the last person on the bus. The bus driver called out to me and said, come on, kid, get off the bus. I got to go. I walked up to this man. I looked him right in his eyes, and he motioned for me to get off the bus. I walked onto the Golden Gate Bridge parking lot, then onto the Golden Gate Bridge walkway, and I paced back and forth for nearly 40 minutes, crying like a baby. I picked a particular light rail, and that's when a woman from my left approached me. She had blonde curly hair, and I thought as she smiled at me that she was going to save me. I thought, this is it. I don't have to do this. I don't have to die today. And she approached with a smile, took out a digital camera and said, will you take my picture? In that accent. And I was devastated. Now, what happened next was not her fault, not by a long shot, but she couldn't see my pain. And that was the last person I would interact with that day before I took a leap off that bridge. I would fall 220 feet, 25 stories at 75 miles an hour in 4 seconds, praying the entire way down that I would live. I knew upon the millisecond that my hands left that rail that I made the single greatest mistake in my life. And as I fell, I said, what have I just done? I don't want to die. God, please save me. And I hit the water. I went down 70 feet beneath the water's surface and I opened my eyes. And what happened next was nothing short of a miracle. When I resurfaced, using only my arms, couldn't feel my legs. I had shattered my T12, L1, L2 lower vertebrae into shards. I missed severing my spinal cord by 2 millimeters. When I broke the surface, I prayed, God, please save me. I don't want to die. I made a mistake. God, please save me. I don't want to die. I made a mistake. On repeat. And I believe he heard me. Something began to circle beneath me. Something very large and very slimy and very alive. And I remember thinking to myself, you've got to be kidding me. I didn't die jumping off the Golden Gate Bridge and a shark is going to eat me. I was freaking out. And I'm punching this thing, but it won't go away. It just keeps circling beneath me. No longer am I wading in the water. I'm lying atop it on my back being kept buoyant by this creature. And I wouldn't learn what it was until I was on a television program with John Quinones called Primetime Live on ABC News, wherein I said I thought there was a shark beneath me in the interview. Well, people who saw the video online went viral from all around the world. One man from Las Vegas, Nevada wrote in. His name is Morgan, and he said, Kevin, I'm so very glad you're alive. I was standing less than 2 feet away from you when you jumped. Until this day, no one would tell me whether you lived or died. It's haunted me until now. By the way, there was no shark like you mentioned you thought there was on the show, but there was a sea lion, and the people above looking down believed it to be keeping your body afloat until the Coast Guard boat arrived behind you. Yeah. The Coast Guard boat arrived. They fished me out of the water, put me in a neck brace, strapped me in from head to toe, and started asking questions. The first of which was, kid, do you know what you just did? I said, yeah, I just jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge. And they said, why? And I had no logical answer. I said, I don't know. I thought I had to die today. Guy leans in. He says, do you understand how many people we pull out of these waters that are already gone? I said, no, sir, and I don't want to know. He said, I'm going to tell you anyway. He said, young man, this unit alone has pulled out 57 dead bodies from these waters. And 1 live one. Me. And that just, it immediately gave me something I hadn't had for so long, perspective. And I ended up going to the hospital. One of the foremost back surgeons on the West Coast performs a back surgery on me that is the first and only of its particular kind. He invented it for my situation. Saves me the ability to walk, stand, and run. Of the 39 Golden Gate Bridge jump survivors, the 1% that have survived in the 83 years of that bridge being opened, as in 99% of those who jumped off that bridge never get to tell their story. Of the 39 who survived, only 5 of us get the privilege to stand, walk, and run. They actually call us the most exclusive survivors club in the whole world. There's a book of the same name by Ben Sherwood, The Survivors Club. I'm making a very important point before I wrap up here. I get to be here. And getting to be here is a privilege and a gift, no matter the pain you're in. If we can understand anything about pain, it's that pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. You go into an office of any psychiatrist or clinician or psychologist, and you're looking for what's wrong with you. Why are you depressed? Why are you having these symptoms? And they say, you have bipolar disorder. You have schizophrenia. You have major depression. You have an eating disorder. You have anxiety, depression. And they say, you're suffering with these things. They give you the terminology that you are a sufferer. I choose a different path. I've been in pain since the day I was born in poverty, but I've never suffered a day in my life. I've been given the gift of a second chance, and I'm going to use that gift of gab to share with the world my story in the hopes, the wishes, and the prayers that it will save lives. And I've gotten letters from around the world, thousands of people from around the world over the last 20 years that say that those things are occurring, that this story has saved lives. I don't own that. I don't say that I save lives. I just want to try. I want to try. And I think that what really happens with people who hear my story and hear the story of others, because it's not about my story, it's about our story, the collective story. It's about people in pain coming through that pain and sharing the pathway of how they got to the positive place they're in now, or that they're in intermittently, you know, because I still go through it. If we can share our stories, because everyone has one, and everyone's is valid, and everyone's is important. If we can share our stories, we can change lives. What happens is the neuroplasticity of the brain captures that story, backbrains it, and then when they're going through trouble themselves, they remember it and they find hope and resilience within it, and then they do the work to save and change their own lives. And that's really where the power of storytelling lies. The hashtag storytelling saves lives could not be more real. It is so true, because if we can find a way, and you don't have to share your story like mine. I before COVID-19, I was traveling 300 days a year, every year for 3 years, sharing my story. You don't have to do that. Create a blog, create a YouTube channel, do it on social media. It doesn't matter how many people you reach. It matters that you reach people. And that's really the answer, is that we can all be a part of this change. We can all be a part of helping other people heal, and we can all be stewards of change for people in mental pain.
Oh my gosh. My heart is beating so fast. Like, it's just so, like, I remember hearing you share the story 8 years ago when I was a college student, and I just happened to go to that event, and now being here and just seeing how you planted that seed in me, like, just, I didn't even know it at the time. I'm just like, oh, I'm just going to an event. And now here I am, like trying to do like suicide prevention and like destigmatize mental health. And it's just a ripple effect, you know? And like your documentary is titled, like, it's just, thank you so much for sharing that.
You're welcome, Yasmin. And listen, you're not trying to do it. You are doing it. You are doing it. Let me tell you why. I'm counting 70 people, 68 people on this feed right now, and there's more behind that because it usually is delayed. And they're writing in these messages about how it's helping people right now. They're writing in messages about how it's affecting them right now. So you are doing a great job. So keep it up. Don't stop, and continue your efforts, because you're changing lives. And you know what? You're going to continue to change lives as you grow in your career and your path and your journey. And I'll always be an ally.
Thank you. Well, it's really, this is really special. So I appreciate that. And I'm wondering, like, like, so many people have opened up to you and been vulnerable and shared things that maybe they wouldn't even share somebody else. Like, what's that like for you?
You know, people always say to me that when they write me, they say, you know, I don't know if you'll see this or get this, but if you do, you know, and they say you'll probably never respond. I can't respond to everybody, but I try my best to respond as many as I can. But they often say that they've never shared these stories with anyone else. And my answer is, why not? And maybe it's because they don't feel heard. But I would say to them that you are given this life to live it until its natural end. And suicide is never the solution to your problem, it is the problem. And so when they come in and they tell me their story for the first time, I am so grateful. I'm so honored that they felt comfortable sharing their story with a perfect stranger just because I shared mine. And I think that is the ripple effect. When we share a story with someone in pain, they share their story of what they've gone through. And we can't, you know, you're one human being, I'm one human being. We're still human. We can't reach everybody, but we try. And I think if we can help the masses recognize that they have value, that they are worthy, and that they do matter, I think that's just the key. I think helping them realize their true beauty, that it lies within, not without, and that they're beautiful just as they are, and they're, you know, 1,000 times greater than the worst thing they've ever done. It's about how we move forward.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm seeing a lot of people are resonating with that in the comments as well. So it's really nice to feel that connection. And then I was also hoping that, so you've been like doing this for 20 years. So like, can you share one memorable experience that stood out to you while doing this work?
One of the most memorable experiences I've ever had was my second year speaking, and I went to Camp Lejeune, United States Marine Corps base, and I spoke to 10,000 Marines in 2 days.
Wow.
And a Lance Corporal approached me, that means he's been in for about 4 or 5 years, and he took off his rank pin, his chevron, as they call it. He took that off, he placed it on my lapel, and he said, I was going to end my life before coming to this presentation. As a matter of fact, I wasn't going to come at all. I decided to come into the presentation and hear your words. And he said, and now I'm going to stay. And it blew my mind that in a 30-minute presentation, the words I spoke could have that kind of effect. I've had people come up to me My first presentation was interesting. I had no intention of telling my story to anyone.
Mm.
No intention. And I was in the hospital, in the psych ward, my first psych ward of 9 in my life. And a Franciscan friar, who you probably saw in the film, Brother George Cherry, walked into my room. He was the chaplain of the hospital at the time. Walked into my room, and this guy would always, 30 years as a chaplain, he would always read the chart. But he didn't read the chart this day. He felt motivated to just walk right in. He goes, hey, kid, what are you in for? And I said, oh, I'm here. I jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge, and I'm sitting there with my cane in my hand, putting on my back brace. And he goes, oh, yeah? And I'm the Pope. He didn't believe me. He thought I was hallucinating or delusional. I said, no, brother, that's what happened. That's why the back brace, that's why the cane. I did do that. He said, oh, my goodness, I'm so sorry. Let's pray. And he came over to my left side, and he prayed with me. And at the end of his prayer, he said, young man, when you get better, you want to talk about this. And I looked at him, and I said, about what to who? And all he said was, you'll see. I said, okay, buddy, sure. Every day, Brother George Cherry would come in, and every day he would say, kid, when you get better, you ought to talk about this. And every day I would ignore him. but then on the last day, he said, kid, I expect you'll talk about this. I'm like, yeah, sure, buddy, I'll see you. And I get out of the hospital. And 7 months later, I'm still wearing my back brace. And I go to church with my father, the church I grew up in, and the church I'd later get married in. And the priest comes out at the end of the service, and he says, Kevin, how would you like to come and talk to our 7th and 8th grade class about your experience this Good Friday? And I said, Father, I don't have a speech, and I wouldn't know what to say. And my father shoved me forward and said, he'll do it. I'm like, what are you doing, Dad? He said, you'll do it. We need closure. I'm like, you need closure. I need to go home and lay down. So Good Friday comes around. I wrote a speech till 3 in the morning that day. And my dad edited it that morning at 7 a.m. We leave for the rectory at 8 a.m. We get there at 9. 120 kids in front of me. I'm wearing my back brace over my clothes. I'm walking with my cane. I'm holding a 17-page speech in my hand that I just wrote that night and the night before. And I'm a mess. Well, I read the speech, and I drop page by page to the floor, reading it from the page, shaking and crying the entire presentation. It was raw. Mm-hmm. And that's when I finished the presentation. The last page drops to the floor, and 8 hands went up. And the first question was totally inappropriate, so I didn't answer it. The nun goes, don't answer that. I said I wasn't going to. The next questions were inquisitive, intelligible, fantastic questions from 8th grade kids. And I realized there was an impact made. But then 2 weeks later, the priest called me and said, can you come to the rectory? I've got something for you. And I hiked up the 2 mile hill to the rectory with my back brace and my cane. My dad was at work. It was a hot day in San Francisco. I sweated through everything. I get there, and the priest hands me a manila envelope and says, open it. I opened it. I pulled it out. It was a colored pencil drawing of the Sacred Heart of Jesus. I opened it up, and inside it was 120 letters from 120 kids. Now, they were mandated to write those letters. They weren't, they didn't get to go, let's all write to the suicidal guy. But they were mandated to write the letters, but they weren't given parameters on what they could write. They were told to write to their heart's content. And what that did for a group of minors under the age of 18 was allow them to write about, in some cases, their suicidal ideation. 6 of those kids were actively suicidal. We got them the help they needed. They're alive today. And I met some of them. So that just goes to show you that we can all have a massive impact on lives if we so choose.
Wow, that is such an interesting and powerful way to start your journey towards like advocating and sharing your story. And like, is it how am I trying to say this? Like, is it still ever hard for you to share your story?
Absolutely. It's hard for me when I'm having a bad mental health day, which happens often. People often see me, publicly on social media and things like that, and they think that everything's perfect. Now it's not. Just because you see me doing well at a conference for my mental health peers doesn't mean that everything's hunky-dory and okay. One thing about what I do on my public profile is I share the bad times. Last year, I was back in a psych ward. And that was a little over a year ago. And I did a post about on all my social medias about how I have to go back in. I made the choice to go back in. I'm really having a hard time. I need to do this for my better mental well-being. If I don't, I won't be here. And I share the bad times just as much as I share the good times, because we need to be honest and forthright and transparent about our struggles, and not just let our social media feeds be filled with the imaginary and the fake. It's really easy to make those feeds a highlight reel. It's a lot harder to be honest when you're in pain. But I really take a page from the book of my friends who do this. I share the pain, because that's what's going to help people recognize that they can defeat it. That if we go through it too, then they're not alone. So always share. If you're a person who has some kind of a public profile and you're trying to share a message of good mental health and good brain health and well-being and behavioral health, definitely share your hardships, because it's what's going to push someone to fight through their own hard times.
Wow, it's not always easy. I mean, I don't know. I have so much respect for you, like that you're so open and you do that. Personally, it's hard for me, but conversations like these are like inspiring in that way.
And it's okay that it's hard for you, Yasmin. It's okay. It's all right. Take it one day at a time. And when you're ready to, if you're ready to share those painful times so you can help someone go through it, then great. And if you're not, that's okay too. There's no rule that says you have to. I'm just saying that I do it because I know the impact it has had in the past, and I want to continue to try to have that impact.
Yeah, thank you so much. I love that. I'm still processing it. And then I also wanted to ask you, so there's this 5-minute video on CNN with Dr. Sanjay Gupta, which we show in all our trainings. And like sometimes when I get my cousins, I'm like, let's watch this together. And I just want everyone to watch that 5-minute video. And so, because I feel like the world would be different, so in it, you mentioned that the day you decided to jump, if even one person had asked a question or like, are you okay, or noticed you crying and just acknowledged you, that you wouldn't have jumped. So in our QPR trainings, like question, persuade, refer, the Q stands for asking the question. So I'm just wondering, like, how would you respond to someone who's in that training and they say, like, is it really, like, can a question really save a life? Like,
Absolutely. So let me give you a real example of someone very close to me. After I did what I did off the Golden Gate Bridge, my sister, unbeknownst to me, felt it was her fault for 15 years because she didn't call me that day. And she had called me on a regular basis every day. She would call me. And she didn't call me that day. So for 15 years, she believed it was her fault. She moved out of the house, traveled around the country, was a bit of a nomad, and ended up homeless for a few weeks. Sorry, a coyote just walked in my backyard, my front yard. That was in its mouth was an animal. Good Lord. Okay. Anyway, that was awkward. Sorry.
no,
I've never seen something like that. Okay. So my sister ended up in her situation. She was homeless for a little while and she was struggling. And she took her dog and went to a Walmart and had a sign say free dog and free cat, or, you know, her pets. She was ready to give up and she was ready to take her life. Now, I always have said that if someone said, is something wrong? Can I help you? One of those two things or a variation of them, I would have told them everything. A woman walked up to my sister and said, are you okay? Which is one of the things I said as well. Are you okay? Is something wrong? Or can I help you? And she said, are you okay? Can I help you? Two of the three things that I say all the time. And my sister just broke down crying. And this wonderful human being said, you look like you need a good meal. Why don't you come to our church and we'll take care of you. They got her to safety. Well, they've become like her second family. And they said this woman absolutely saved my sister's life. Absolutely saved my sister's life. Wow. With the words, are you okay? And again, can I help you? We too often, the human we, will see someone in visual pain. They're struggling. We can see it in their eyes. And we walk by because we say it's not our business. If it's not our business, whose business is it? That's not to say we're going to stop every suicide by doing this. It's just to say that we are going to reach people at their core who are in an excruciating amount of lethal emotional pain, and we could possibly, potentially, veer them to a better path. That's why I always say suicide is never the solution to our problem. It is the problem. I mean that in the most truest form of the words. That if we don't recognize it as a problem, people will recognize it as the solution. And that in itself is the negative aspect of suicide, is that people think it's the answer. It's not the answer. It's not the answer. It solves nothing. As a matter of fact, it leaves people in a wake of destruction for the rest of their lives. And we don't want people to think they should stay here for guilt. We don't want them to stay here for guilt. We want them to find the light at the end of their tunnel and recognize that if they don't always see it, it's there. They just haven't reached far enough to reach it, walked far enough to reach it. And I think that the more people we can inspire to recognize their inner strength and their resilience, the more people will stay and be here tomorrow.
Wow. I love that. Like, it goes back to what you were saying earlier about like you don't save lives, you're helping people save their own lives.
Yes.
And I recently heard that through like Dee Hirsch in LA, and I was just like, oh my gosh, like I haven't heard it that way. Like, I think we should start sharing that in QPR as well, because wow.
I've been saying it for 2 decades that it's not my story. It's not my words. It's the fact that we are telling these stories, trying to help people find hope. And these stories, they really do stick in the brain. And if they're told in a way that is socially conscious, relevant, and holds an aspect of recovery and well-being, and how you found, live, and stay in recovery, that's really the answer, is that you can give someone in the darkest place in their life that glimmer of hope, and they could potentially work tirelessly to augment their destiny forever. Meaning that they stay alive that one day they were going to take their life, they stay alive, then they have kids. And someday their kids have kids. And that never would have happened if they had not heard that one message that kind of nudged them to work hard or harder to change their future.
Wow. And can you actually talk a little bit more about recovery? Like, and
Sure.
what that's like for you?
I can tell you what it looks like for me. I mean, I have a 10-step plan that I follow called The Art of Wellness. You can find it, you can find it at my website, kevinhinesstory.com, or you can find it on youtube.com/kevinhines under the Art of Wellness playlist. It is a 10-step guide to better brain, mind, behavioral, mental well-being. It is something that people use all around the globe and have told me they've used from as far as Peru, Africa, China, and Japan. It's something that people say in 6 to 9 months of utilizing, they see a dramatic improvement in their mental health and well-being. I'll give you a few examples of the things it includes. I'll give you the 3 E's, if you will, are just 3 steps of the 10. Eating healthily, exercise, and education. So eating healthy, non-inflammatory foods helps increase your positive gut health and well-being, which improves your brain activity and function. Exercise I exercise 3 days a week. Exercising 3 to 5 to 6 days a week leads to better brain health and better mood. 23 minutes of rigorous exercise a day leads to 12 hours of better mood. Who doesn't want that if you're physically capable? Educating yourself as to your diagnosis and all of the reputable proven forms of therapy and treatments, all of them, not some of them, all of them. So reading up on what your diagnosis is and the best ways to combat that diagnosis, whether that be functional medicine, holistic medicine, or traditional medicine, or all of the above. And whether that be talk therapy or music therapy or art therapy, whatever makes sense for you, or all of the above. So all of these things I implement into a 10-step plan. And I think the videos are great on YouTube because they're 3 to 5 minutes each, simple steps, easy to follow, easy to track, and you can watch them again. So that. But I think that, it's really all about, my father said it best, hard work, because nothing good ever came without it. And he would say that all my years growing up, and I never really listened to him until after the Golden Gate Bridge incident. I realized that if I didn't put in the work to augment my brain health, that I wasn't going to be well. And I had to fight. I had to fight the good fight and realize my true value and push forth.
Wow. It's incredible how, I don't know how you do it. Like so you have this plan, and then like, how do you still go out and like do so much? I don't, like, how do you stay grounded and also like separate your personal life from like all of the suicide prevention work? And
well, it's about the connections I've made in my lifetime. So it's certainly, my wife helps me with all of that. She's my sounding board, my rock, my greatest love, the greatest thing that ever happened to me. Shout out Margaret. But it's about, I stay grounded and I stay in the present by being grateful for every step of the way. If you can hold gratitude in the face of pain, you can always survive it. If you can be grateful in the painful times, during the struggles, during the strife, you can always survive that pain because you appreciate what the pain will lead to. The pain will lead to light at the end of the tunnel and a future that is better than the one you have right now, but only with hard work.
I wish there was an easy way out. Like, I wish it was easier, but no, I totally think that's true. And I can relate. Like, my dad has shared a lot of things, which I don't listen to until now. I'm like 27. So yeah, no, I love that gratitude. Oh my goodness. Now I'm distracted because I can hear my grandparents fighting upstairs.
That's okay. Take a mental health moment. You're good.
So I'm like, why?
Take a breath. Take a breath. I can't hear them, so you're good.
No, we're good. I'm just like, why? I told them like 5 to 6 because I'm in New York. I'm like, please, if the phone rings, answer. This is really big. I showed them that 5-minute video of yours. So, anyways, this is just amazing. And I'm just going to ask like a couple more questions because I see there's like 3 in the chat box or the question box. Oh, could you share like any, because I love that you focus on hope, like over these past 20 years, like what is something like a positive change in regards to mental health and suicide prevention that you've seen?
One thing I've seen in the past few years is the level of awareness being heightened beyond reproach in a good way. The level of people being, the amount of people that are aware that mental health issues are real has increased tremendously. Thus, the people who want to fight to help people with the mental health has increased tremendously. It used to be when I started this work in the year 2001 that there were 20 people that would tell their stories in a setting like mine. 20 lived experience advocates, and that was it. Now there are thousands. Some of them are self-proclaimed online and on social medias and maybe not tried, true, and tested yet, but they're working at it and they're trying to help people, which is just great. We want that. You know, there's a whole faction of people in the mental health community that don't believe in hope and the think that hope is just a bunch of hype and that there's no substance behind the word hope. But I disagree. I think that hope may not be the answer, but it's a starting point, and it can build into an action plan. If you can find hope in your existence, you can find purpose. If you can find purpose, you can stay here. People who are serving a cause, people who give back to others and volunteer for a cause are 63% more mentally healthy than those who do not. That's a big stat. That's a big number. Wow. 63% more mentally healthy than those who don't give back to a cause. So if we can find a purpose that is bigger than ourselves, greater than ourselves, that serves a community, any community, every community, then we will be happier in our existence. So yes, hope does exist. It is real and it does matter.
Awesome. Thank you. And then, okay, there's like a bunch of questions coming in now, so I don't want to hog up my list where I'm just like, I want to ask all of these. So let's see. We have one question right here. What would you suggest on how to open the suicide topic with parents that are coming from the culture where it's not talked about?
Oh, this is a great question. So for a culture where it's not talked about, I think it's important to you know, you let's just give the example you had. You showed your grandparents the video, right? Today, and I'm sure that probably had a positive effect on them. And find a video that describes it better than you can. Okay, find a video that is relatable, that shares with you the truth behind mental pain, and then reference what you go through to that video. It's not difficult. Besides my story, there are thousands online, especially on YouTube now, where people share their stories of living with depression. People are sharing these things more than ever before. Find one that suits you. Find a story that your parents or grandparents can relate to, or your guardians. Share it with them, and then express to them that you are feeling some of the same things and that you need their support, love, and care. Now, if that's not going to work, write them a letter. Oftentimes, if you look at different cultures, the words we use don't express enough of how we truly feel, and then we get cut off by the person, or they interrupt, or they tell us, no, you shouldn't feel that way, or why would you feel that way, or why are you telling me this? And there's all these kinds of things going on that are difficult to get the message across. But when you write a letter, maybe, if their first language is a different language, maybe in their native tongue, write a letter, express everything you're going through and have gone through in that letter, and why you need their love and support, and their kindness and their compassion, but most importantly, their empathy. And that you need to open up a line of communication about the struggles you're going through, because you don't want to struggle in them alone. I think that's the best way to reach a multicultural background of individuals who might not otherwise believe in mental health or believe in mental illness. I think that's the way to kind of break through those barriers.
Yeah, amazing. I love that. Oh my gosh, so many questions. Okay, how about this one? What is one thing you can say to people out there who is suffering but is limited by quarantine?
Oh man, if you're going through it and you are limited by quarantine into how you can interact with people, or your job, or all the aspects of life that we had normally before quarantine existed, one thing I can say is this: call or FaceTime as many people, or video conference or video call as many people in your Rolodex as humanly possible to get that one-on-one FaceTime. It's been proven that visually seeing someone's face and their facial expressions through a screen is often more healing than texting back and forth. Visually seeing them is more healing than talking on the phone, but talking on the phone is more healing than texting. So give those two things a shot, and find people that are willing to empathize with you, so you can have that good FaceTime, so you can see them, and make it a regular thing where you're like, you source out the people in your network and say, and really be bold. Ask them the question: are you willing to be a part of my support network in COVID? I'll be yours, you be mine. And when I'm going through it, I can call you. When you're going through it, you can call me. We're in this together is the answer there. So I think that we know that. And also, if you are in crisis, I want to say this: text the crisis text line, CNQR to 741-741. That stands for Courage to Talk About Your Mental Health. Normalize the conversation. Ask the question: are you suicidal? Have you made a plan to take your life? And R is for Recovery, Living Proof. So CNQR to 741-741. We want everyone to realize that today is not tomorrow. And just because you're going through it today doesn't mean you don't get to have a beautiful tomorrow, but you got to be here to get there in the first place.
Oh, love it. There's another question. How do you think we may teach or retrain our law enforcement and police officers to be empathetic, to value each human life, including Black lives specifically?
As a mixed race Black man myself, and someone who's experienced extreme racism as a kid, where they, God, when I was in grade school, the 8th grade kids, when I was a 4th grader, would call me Little Red N-word every day. And they'd pick me up, turn me upside down, and place me in a garbage can every Friday, just because of me being part Black. And as far as police are concerned, I work with a lot of law enforcement officers to teach them about mental health and mental well-being and relatability. And I try to educate them about how to treat someone who's mentally struggling. And I think that certainly police reform is needed to zero out and destroy and eradicate all racial bias and racism and bigotry and prejudice in the police system. And I think that we need to do that, lead by example. We need to let them know that our voices matter, that our voices are important, that need to be heard, and that we're not going away, but we do want to work on this together. And I'm of the opinion that we need to work on it in unison with the police to try to help them be more empathetic and be more kind and be more compassionate. And the way to do that is to be inviting, inventive, intelligent, and compassionate to them so they can be compassionate to us. And I think you're seeing a lot of that with a lot of the great Black leaders right now trying to help police reform move forward. It's really about getting a seat at the table and then telling your truth so you can help them recognize their faults and the potential mistakes and how they can be better to every human, not just one race or one kind. The human race. It's the human race. We need to be kind to the human race, to everyone.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I appreciate that question and your response to that. Okay, next question is, when you slowly start to go back into a dark place, how do you get out before it gets bad?
One of my big go-tos when I can sense myself falling into a bad pattern is I go straight to exercise. My wife will say when I'm going through a depressive moment, she'll say, drop and give me 50 push-ups. And I'll do it because I know that at the end of that 50 push-ups, endorphins will be moving in my brain to make me feel better. And so I do something physical to get my mind out of that situation. So if you can't do something physical, do something like make a drawing, paint a painting, write a letter, put an entry in your journal. Get how you feel on paper. Get how you feel on a canvas. I use, someone had written in about how I get through this without doctors and medicine. I take medication for my mental health. I have for years. It helps me. I have severe bipolar disorder with psychotic features, which means I have hallucinations, auditory and visual, and I have paranoid delusions. So I actually do see doctors and use not just functional medicine, but psychiatric medicine to help balance my brain health. I use all of the tools in my toolbox to stay stable. And so I think that before it gets too bad, you've got to take action and move.
That's amazing. You're such a great speaker. Like, I feel the passion, like the phone, and I'm just pumped to, oh, wow. And I got a notification saying there's only like a minute left. I've never done an Instagram live this long, but it's going to end. But if other people have questions, please feel free to message you. Is that okay, Kevin? Or
sure, they can message me on my Instagram. Absolutely, you bet. They can DM me.
Yeah, and I want to share with everyone that, yeah, Kevin has so many resources. Like, if you just go to the Instagram, the YouTube, the Facebook, like everything, there's so many great resources there as well. So, wow. Thank you.
Can I mention the tools one more time, the resources?
Yes.
Okay, so make sure you go, and you might want to put this in the comments if you can. You can go to kevinhinesstory.com. So kevinhinesstory.com. There's two S's there, KEVINHINESSTORY.com. And then you can go to youtube.com/KevinHines and make sure you subscribe and hit that bell, because the more people that subscribe to that, the more we're able to reach. We get letters on there, and they're 98% positive letters from people all around the world who say that the videos are helping change their lives. There are 400 videos to choose from. My wife and I started a film production company, and we have 400 videos